So today I'm going to be looking at the Bru Tea Maker One. Now this slick, slimline machine promises a convenient way to brew tea. But can it brew a good, consistent cup? And importantly, is it worth the €299 it costs? Brewing tea is relatively easy if you know a few small parameters. One, what type of tea you're brewing. So you understand what temperature you need to brew it at. You need to know the steep time as well, and have some key equipment like a teapot, a kettle, and a cup. But getting your brew consistently good can be quite tricky. The Bru Maker One might look like an espresso machine, but it doesn't work on a capsule-based system. In fact, it promises you can brew any kind of tea, whether loose or tea bags, perfectly all the time. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the machine. Aesthetically, it's beautiful to look at. It comes in a couple of colors, so I believe there's white and black with different color trims to suit the look of your kitchen or office. It doesn't take very much footprint, so not a lot of countertop space that it will take. From bottom to top, when the lid is open, it stands at about 47 centimeters, which means it fits very nicely under the kitchen cupboards or in a cupboard itself. And at the back, you have a large water tank which holds about 3 liters of water, and it even has a space for a special Brita filter, which I will put in the link below to make sure that you buy the right one, because it needs to fit very snugly in the tank over here. But it's very important to always have and use filtered water in tea making, because it contributes greatly to the aroma and flavor experience. And if you want to know more, I have a video for that. Underneath the lid here, you have your tea strainer, where you would put your loose leaf tea or a tea bag, depending on what kind of tea you're making. The tea strainer sits in this glass cup over here, which makes about 1.4 liters of water at a time. And goes very snugly in here like that. And then you have your dial here, which gives you a lot of control to set the temperature, the steep time, and there are other multiple settings which I will show you in more detail just a little bit later. And over here you have space to put your cup to capture the liquor that it will dispense, and it can also hold a teapot. And if your teapot is particularly large, you can remove the drain and set it really comfortably underneath the dispenser. So let's see if it can make a good cup of tea. So how does the Bru Tea Maker One actually work? The large water tank at the back is filled with filtered water, and after selecting the type of tea you want to brew, you would decide the temperature, the steep time, as well as the volume of water you want to use, because that's very, very important to tea as well. As soon as you press start, the machine then transports the exact amount of water that you've selected. It passes through some heating coils and into the brewing chamber, where the glass and the tea strainer is with your tea. It then allows it to steep for the desired amount of time, and when it's done, it then dispenses the tea liquor into your cup or teapot at the exact amount of time you set. So let's see how the process works by tasting some tea. I've decided to challenge the Bru Tea Maker One to make this beautiful Japanese tea called gyokuro. Gyokuro is very special. It translates to jade dew, and it's one of Japan's most exquisite teas. The reason why it's called jade dew is because it has this beautiful green, jade-like color, and the flavor is slightly umami balanced with that beautiful Japanese tea sweetness. And sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to get this tea right when you hand brew, especially if you're doing it for the first time. So hopefully, once we set the machine to the exact presets, it should make a beautiful cup. But we'll see. The proof is in the pudding. The very first step we need to take is to make sure that we use the right amount of tea. So I'm going to be measuring about 5 grams for 250 mils of water. And I'm going to set the machine to brew it at 70 degrees for 1.5 minutes. So let's see if this proportions are right to bring the brew together. This is really, really important. It's like baking a cake. You need the right ingredients and the right settings and method to actually brew it. So let's measure out 5 grams here of tea. There we go. Perfect. It's exactly 5. And then we're going to open the brewing chamber. Okay. And make sure I did a run before to heat the machine, which is something I'd advise you to do if you do get this machine, because then it heats, it's like warming your pot. It heats all the elements, and that way you not only flush the machine out, especially if you've done a run before, but it's nice to heat all the elements before you actually start your first tea run. So I've measured 5 grams of gyokuro. It's going to go into the metal strainer. You put the lid back off the strainer and close the top lid. Then we're going to make sure the presets are right. So what we want is 70 degrees at, okay, we'll make sure that it's steep time 1.5 minutes to 70 degrees to 250 mils of water. And then I'm going to press start. It's so nice to have someone else make your tea for you for a change. So I'm really, really hopeful it's going to be a good cup. Oh, 3, 2, 1. Look at that color. Oh, it's lovely. Very promising. Aroma is already coming through. And that shot you see was this the last shot that the oh, it's telling me when it turns green, by the way, that it's done. But that last shot you see just cools that tea down just that little bit so you can take a sip immediately. But let's see how it will taste. Oh yes, a savory, marine, sweet notes. Look at that wonderful color. I think you can see how green it is. So let's take a sip. Perfect. Absolutely delicious. Balance of umami and sweetness is absolutely divine. I couldn't have brewed it better myself. So the Bru Tea Maker One has definitely passed the taste test. But what about its functionality? Was it easy to use? Was it easy to clean? I'm going to go through some of the key features, and then we'll talk about overall how I feel about this machine. What I love about it most is that it can brew any kind of tea. Because as a specialty tea lover, I love exploring different types. I love to taste tea from different makers, make my own tea as well. And this machine suits me really well because as long as I can control the temperature, the steep time, and the amount of water used, I can always brew any type of tea. The second thing about it, I think, and this is quite an important one, that it brews just the right amount of water. A lot of times you would fill a kettle at home, you know, when you're brewing tea, and a lot of the water gets wasted. Now, in the UK alone, about 3,500 tons of carbon dioxide is wasted every single day on brewing water that we might never drink. And this is such a poor use of the limited amount of energy that we have. So, massive tick for the brew machine. The other is that it has a rinse function. So if, you know, for me, I drink multiple different types of tea a day. I'm a tea taster and it's on the go all the time. So the rinse function is really useful to make sure that the flavor doesn't translate into my next cup of tea. And then, of course, there's that repeatable taste. If you love a specific type of tea, there's the preset function that you can set so that you never have to select it all the time. And that can be pretty useful if you want a repeatable taste. The timer function is interesting because if you're a creature of habit and you like your tea just, you know, before you step in the door, or perhaps maybe just as you're waking up and you want a fresh brew, this little baby can do that for you. Then, of course, there's the multiple steeping. So in one steep, if you're making a large teapot for yourself, it can brew up to 1.6 liters at a go with the multi-steeping function. The brew machine is also app connected, which means you can have even more control remotely, whether it is brewing at a certain time, updating the machine's software, or getting access to a whole library of information about tea brewing. So that's really exciting and one to watch. So if you're thinking of getting the brew machine, I'd definitely say as a specialty tea lover that it is a good investment for your 299 euros. One of my top tips is to make sure that you run a brew cycle before you start so it heats up all the elements, which means especially in the brewing chamber, it maintains the temperature that you set it in, especially if you're brewing in winter or the elements are cold. This can greatly reduce the temperature of the water quite quickly. So run a brewing cycle to heat all the elements up so it stays, you know, at the exact temperature you need it to draw that beautiful aromas and flavors out of your tea leaves. So is the Bru Maker One worth the 299 euros it costs? If you just love a simple cup or love going through the traditional brewing rituals, then maybe it's not for you. But if you're like me and you enjoy specialty teas and want to make consistently good tea with different brewing times and temperatures easily, or you would like to start being more adventurous with your tea choices, then yes, I think the Bru Maker One is a great way to go if it meets your budget. So concluding thoughts, it's not a glorified kettle and can be your best friend when it comes to brewing tea. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you've got a brew machine or if you have any questions. For now, happy sipping and have a great day.